Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I'm your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
And the one and only Andy Anders, assistant sports editor for the Lantern, sporting a neutral, I want to point out it's a neutral Big Ten title game hat.
And I'm your assistant sports director, Khalid Hashi.
And it's your boy, the sports editor, Griffin Strom.
And today we do not have a game to recap because Ohio State is coming off the bye week, but we do have a game to preview as Ohio State is traveling to Northwestern for a Friday night game. Very interesting, Friday night game. Ohio State doesn't have a lot of those.
You're back in high school.
Yeah, really. It's like back being...
Friday Night Lights.
It's like Friday Night Lights, exactly.
No one knows it better than Andy Anders.
No one knows.
Facts.
Indeed. Oh, Khalid knows it too.
That is true.
Yeah.
I just don't claim it as much.
You just don't talk about it.
Seriously, Clay, I feel like you should claim it more. We need more of your analysis.
I feel like you might have probably been the better player anyway.
My breakdown. Okay.
Low key, I talk about it more because I'm insecure about my abilities, while you're just over here like, I'm better than this guy.
I'll drop 100 yards on any of you boys.
Cool hundo.
Anyway, Northwestern.
Right.
So
Yes.
let's dive right into that game. Also, before we do start that, actually, I do want to say later in the podcast we will be having a special guest. We're going to bring back the quiz we did a couple weeks ago, just this time with another Lantern staff member. So if you want to stick around for that, please do. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Brian. I applied to Northwestern, and I don't even think they gave me an acceptance or rejection letter.
Really?
So just an aside there.
I was going to apply to Northwestern, but they were early action instead of early. They were early enroll instead of early action. So, like, if they had accepted me, I would have had to go there, and Ohio State was still my first choice.
Yeah, I considered applying to Northwestern. What? But then I realized that I'm dumb, so I didn't do that.
Wait, so if you get accepted, you have to go there?
Yeah, for an early enroll. Otherwise, you pay like some penalty.
Yeah, essentially.
And they gave no merit-based scholarships,
Is it like that
which is insane.
everywhere, though?
It depends.
Yeah, anywhere that's early enroll. If it's early action, which Ohio State is early action, you can get accepted early, but not have to go there. Also, like, you want to apply and get accepted early for scholarship reasons. Like,
Right.
you can get more scholarships that way. So it's like, I was going to apply 3 places. The other 2 I found out were early enroll, and I'm like, well, I wanted to go to Ohio State anyway, so they accepted me. I was good.
Well, to any prospective high schoolers looking to get into college, there you go. You just got all the information you need to apply to Ohio State. There you go. But I do think our viewers are hoping to hear from us about football. So let's start previewing this game. Andy, let's start off with your take.
Northwestern's had a down year. Obviously, I think a lot of people coming into this season were expecting a team that, made the Big Ten title game last year, has a very qualified coach in Pat Fitzgerald, always seems to be at least sound on defense, to be a decent team in the Big Ten this year, be a decent road test for Ohio State, just the fact that this game is on the road. But obviously, losses, they're 1-4 so far on the year. Lost to Nebraska last week, who we saw Ohio State throttle 48-7. Lost to Stanford in week 1, and Stanford hasn't turned out to be any, they're below 500 team right now, I believe, or at 500 in that vicinity. Northwestern right now doesn't have a quarterback who's thrown more than 10 passes that completes at least 50% of them. Doesn't have a running back with at least 400 yards rushing. Ohio State has 2. They are 128th in scoring offense right now. It is not
Pretty.
an up year for the Northwestern Wildcats after they lost their star quarterback Clayton Thorson. And I think they've also had some injuries to star tailback Isaiah Bowser, who a lot of people were expecting to have a good year this year. Overall, there's just, especially on offense, this team does not match up against Ohio State at all. The fact that it's in Evanston helps a little bit, but I can't expect them to hang in this game long.
Yeah, I just want to chime in there to clarify. Stanford is currently 500, if my math is correct, because of their win over Washington a week ago. So there you go. But either way, Stanford's still a team that has lost to UCF, lost to USC, and lost to Oregon. So not the greatest team from the Pac-12.
Right.
Anyway, Griffin, what are you kind of thinking about this matchup, specifically more like how it's, a Friday night road game, which is really just strange for Ohio State?
I think people are, everyone talks about trap games and whatnot with Ohio State. And I think we all know which are the legitimate games at this point. Penn State, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I don't think people are expecting Ohio State to get tripped up with Rutgers or Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
But Northwestern, despite having such a down year, they were just in the Big Ten championship, and it is kind of an off-kilter schedule. I mean, even for us, like everything gets moved up a day for Ohio State football, and so I could see it being kind of a weird feel for them. I mean, you saw in that last night game they got off to kind of a slow start. I'm not anticipating them having much of a problem beating the Wildcats, but I just think, I don't know, they could get off to a slow start again. That's definitely a possibility.
Mm-hmm. So what I'll say is, I don't know, it's weird with how quickly this team has gone south. But I will say their start of the season is a little bit more tougher than normal teams. Like, they started off against Stanford, which is a ranked team. Then they won against UNLV, and then they played Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. None of those teams are like non-competitive teams, so all of their losses have, I'll say, they've been justified by how good the team they've been playing is. But it's just sad to see how they went from playing Ohio State in the Big Ten title game to just now they're 1-4. But Ohio State does open up with a spread of 28 points, and that's a pretty big spread to open up with early. And they do have 15 Ohio natives on their squad, so that's something to note. It's not nearly as much as Cincinnati had, which is, I don't think anyone's going to come close to that. I think it was like 72 or something like that. But with it being a Friday night game, I don't think it's going to be a trap game just because I feel like Ohio State's that much better. But you never know. Like, they're at home. Their home crowd is going to probably have nothing else to do, so they might come out and support and watch Ohio State. So
I know Chicago's close by.
Yeah. But what's it called? I don't know. So I just feel like they may come out with some type of energy and make it a little bit of a game early on, but I just feel like Northwestern stands no chance against this Ohio State team.
Yeah, I do want to expand on that point you made about how like difficult Northwestern's early schedule has been. Looking at like the back half of their schedule, Northwestern plays Ohio State this week, and then they play Iowa. But then, like, their last 5 games of the season are against Indiana, Purdue, UMass, Minnesota, and Illinois. The only threatening matchup there is Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I think Northwestern could conceivably win the rest of those and actually end the year with a respectable record. Still probably a losing record, but they could at least like get like 5, maybe 6 wins and maybe have a chance at. Well, if they get a chance at bowl eligibility, I'd say that's a respectable season. Maybe not as good as they were hoping.
They've had a rough schedule.
But for a team that's returning 12 starters, I don't think that's something you should really sniff at.
Yeah. They're young. They're
a young team. So.
Yeah. One thing I will point out, we talk a lot about how I don't think Northwestern's going to be able to move the ball against Ohio State's defense at all, honestly, on offense. They just don't have any weapons out there, and you're facing a really complete Ohio State attack on defense. One thing that Northwestern does do well, jumping ahead a little bit here, but is zone defense. They are going to force you to beat them, to line up and to make drives. They play the zone defense where you keep everything in front of you, and you come up and you make the tackles, right? So Ohio State's going to be having to dink and dunk a lot in the early goings of this game and work the ball down the field. Northwestern actually does have the 14th ranked pass defense in the country for this reason. They force teams to go underneath and to beat them in slow, methodical ways through the air. On the ground, they fare a little worse. They're ranked below 50th, and we know how vaunted Ohio State's rushing attack is to this point. That Michigan State game just established they're one of the best rushing teams in the country. So I think that'll help establish, too. You get with the ground game. The other thing is, I think... Oh, man, I had a point. It was Griffin, I'm going to toss it over to you now. I had another point. I forget what it was.
I'm going to toss it right over to Khalid.
What I will say is that this game, Ohio State's main focus should be coming out of this game with health. The last thing you want is to suffer a major injury against a team like Northwestern. I think what's going to happen is they're probably just going to jump out really early in the game, and then I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the second half of the second quarter, they just start throwing in their secondary guys and just let them get some experience, because this is the kind of game where you want to see what kind of depth you really have. I mean, they've gotten experience with their young guys, but this is just one other game where it's like you like to see those young guys such as Garrett Wilson and Zach Harris and all those guys get some experience. I want to see that, but I will say I do believe this is a game where a lot of the star guys just are like stat stuffing. For example, like I feel like Chase Young may go out and get maybe even like 3 sacks in just the first half and then call it quits. JK may blow out for over 100 in the first half and call it quits. So we'll see, but I just feel like Ohio State's main focus is just be getting out of this game with health.
Yeah. I think my main point for Ohio State and what they need to do is I think this is a game where Ohio State needs to come out fast and hot. I'm not worried about them losing the game, but I don't want this to be kind of another
stretch
occurrence where Ohio State starts off slow in the first quarter and then picks it up in the second quarter and is fine. But this is a bad Northwestern team that Ohio State, despite the spooky night game road atmosphere on Friday.
Spooky.
Yeah, spooky. Yeah, Halloween's coming up, guys. Trick or treat.
Spooky season.
But it is spooky season.
Yeah.
But this is not a team that Ohio State should struggle against. Northwestern might throw some interesting schemes and may trip them up on maybe their first drive, but this is an Ohio State team that has too much talent. And this is not a game where Ohio State should come out flat.
Right.
Really, there's always one game in the past couple of seasons where Ohio State's just come out looking flat. Last year it happened way more often than one time. Yes. But, this says like the makings of being like that one game where it's like, oh, Ohio State's just kind of taking it easy. They got Wisconsin next week. That's what they're really concerned about. But Ohio State lost the bye week. They need to come out with a statement.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the game where I feel like we're going to see a high dose of Master Teague. I feel like JK is really not going to get – he may not even get as many touches as he would probably like, but I feel like very early on in this game, once they get out to a couple touchdown lead, it's like, all right, I don't care if it's like just the beginning of the second quarter, like JK needs to get out of there, make sure we have him healthy for Wisconsin next week. And then also on the defensive side of the ball, just some of your key guys, I feel like this is a week – I don't want to say like you get rest, but there's an emphasis on like – if you suffer one injury to a key guy such as Jeffrey Okudah or Chase Young or Jake or somebody, that's going to hurt really big, and that could cause your team to not get into the college football playoffs. Because say you go into Wisconsin next week and you're missing a key player, and say that game is going to be a really big matchup where it's going to be a close game, and if you lose that game, who knows, that could keep you out of the Big Ten championship game and could keep you out of the playoffs. So, yeah, like I keep saying, just we got to keep these guys healthy.
Right. One thing I do want to say is that I think, to your point, Brian, this doesn't feel like a team that's going to get trapped to me in weeks past, just listening to them talk. And we brought this up before, how, coaches always say that they're worried about the game at hand. Players always say it, but I think they're starting to show it. And they haven't looked ahead of a team yet. We heard J.K. Dobbins speak from experience in that one post-game presser, and that really impressed me. And J.K.'s not a guy who says much typically in post-game interviews. Correct. Doesn't give you a lot. Yeah, Griffin and I know all too well. But this was actually a moment of sincerity. Someone asked him about, trap games and the like, and he said, we don't look ahead of teams. I know, I do that. The last time we did that, we lost to Iowa. We lost to Purdue. That's what he said. And I think it really shows, like, the experience on the team is imparting on the younger players, like, hey, we've been there. Don't do it. Don't look ahead of a team ever. Right. And honestly, this is college football. Even the worst team in college football is still a very competent football team that can beat you if you don't, try to beat them, essentially. So I think Ohio State knows not to look ahead of this game. And for that reason, I think it won't be close.
And even this is a team where it's like the last 2 years, their season has been basically thrown away because they've slept on teams and gotten upset. And a lot of the star players on this Ohio State team are guys like J.K. and Jeffrey and Chase who are juniors. So they've been through those 2 seasons of sleeping on a team and getting upset. So I feel like you're right with that thought of they're the ones putting an emphasis on each week focus on your matchup, no matter who it is, and just make sure you're not overlooking an opponent. Because, like you said, it is college football and anything can happen. And we saw that with Georgia this past weekend getting upset by South Carolina. So, and I feel like Ohio State understands right now, like, all right, teams are starting to fall off. This is a time period where teams are starting to look too far ahead to the bigger matchups, because a lot of teams are having their rivalry games, such as Oklahoma and Texas just had this past weekend. So teams are starting to look ahead to those big games, but Ohio State has to put an emphasis on just focus on this week. Even we understand that Wisconsin's coming up next week, but before then, you got to get through Northwestern.
To clarify, I'm not really concerned about whether Ohio State's going to come out flat. I think they'll come out strong. I'm just saying they need to come out fast and strong this game. Like, this is like the game where they really need to make that statement. Like, we're not going to be like Georgia. We're not the same team as the past two seasons, because this is the last time where people are really going to say, oh, well, if Ohio State comes out slow, it's same old. They're, if they lose a game, they're not going to make it to the playoffs.
I'm not so much worried about the offense coming out starting slow. I'm afraid the defense may come out and be like, oh, they're not going to be able to run on us. They're not going to be able to throw on us. And who knows, Northwestern could come out with a couple trick plays to get the energy flowing and catch Ohio State sleeping early. And that's my biggest fear, because I feel like Ryan Day and Justin Fields and them guys are going to come out and to just be more athletic team, more faster, more stronger team up front to get what they want. But on the defense side, if you come out lazy on the defense, it's really easy to give up first downs time after time and time again. And then next thing you know, you're on your heels, and they could score early and make it, I don't want to say competitive, but make it longer than it should be.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we really have to preview for this game. So do we want to get ahead into some score predictions for Friday's game?
Oh, boy.
Let's go. All right. Honestly, I was thinking it up while we were talking. I am going with a final of 49-3 Ohio State. I think Northwestern will Ohio State will stay under 50 just because of Northwestern's ability to keep things in front of them, but they're going to be running away with this game, especially when Northwestern's defense fails to keep Ohio State's offense off the field, keep their own defense rested. And then some clock management toward the end of the fourth quarter again, but I think 49-3 is my prediction.
I'm going to say 42-13.
Really?
13.
13.
A touchdown and 2 field goals.
I will say 56-0.
Wow.
Shut out.
I can see it.
Okay. Well, I was gonna go pretty similar to Andy Anders. Kind of be a little middle. I'll go 45-3.
I just feel like they're going to jump out. I just feel like they're going to jump out to a pretty big lead by halftime, somewhere in the range of like the 30s, and it's going to be a 0. But I feel like even the young guys are going to come out and kind of like they did a couple weeks ago, where Jamison Williams and Garrett goes off for a couple touchdowns. The young guys. So I feel like it's just going to be one of those games where the score is just
I will change.
lopsided.
I'm going to change mine just a little bit. I'll make it 45-7, just so I have a little bit of a difference from Andy.
A little bit.
I just think
don't want to be a copycat.
as good as dominant as Ohio State defense has been this season, you've still seen teams with opportunities to score, and I think a lot of the time it ends up being quite a few self-inflicted wounds as to why they don't end up just getting a field goal or something, with bad turnovers or, missed field goals, blocked field goals, getting fumbling on the one if you're Cincinnati, stuff like that. And I think at this point in the season, maybe a team like Northwestern with a coach like Pat Fitzgerald might have some of those things buttoned up a little bit at this point,
I guess that's fair.
That's fair. The only reason I really don't think Lake Northwestern is going to come out with that much is just because they struggled against Nebraska a ton, and Nebraska's not. And we saw it firsthand. Nebraska's not that good, especially defensively. So that's why I don't really think it's going to be that much of an issue.
Over under 3 sacks for Chase Young.
I'll take the push. He gets 3.
I'll go under.
I'll go over then.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to get that, but might as well go crazy. So
Do we see a defensive touchdown in this game?
Yes.
Yeah, I could see it.
I could see it, yeah.
Chase Young with his first fumble recovery touchdown.
He almost had that pick He almost had that pick six, if you
Yeah.
remember.
Yep.
When he dropped.
Well, Ohio State may not have played last week, but still plenty happened nationally that I do think is worth covering. Specifically, there are a couple key upsets and a couple key wins that really kind of caused Ohio State to lose the bye week. We saw in the AP poll they dropped from being tied at third with Georgia to being moved down to fourth because of LSU's win over. Excuse
But
me.
honestly, I feel like it was well deserved though.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think LSU was,
That was a good win.
yeah.
You have 2 good wins under there.
Yeah, they have 2 good wins under the
And
belt. You know,
Honestly,
beating
not sold
Florida.
on Texas at all. I don't think every time I've watched them, I have not been impressed. But
I haven't
it's still
either,
a
but
good
at the same
win.
time, it's kind of like, all right, but
Still a good
compared
win,
to
Yeah, I
who we
mean,
played, it's a
yeah.
better win.
I think LSU definitely has the best resume, and they have legitimate arguments as to why they're the best team in the country. Frankly, I don't know why they aren't ranked ahead of Alabama. If you're going to rank them ahead of Clemson, why not rank them ahead of Alabama when LSU clearly has a better resume?
I don't know, but I feel like as the weeks go on, I feel like we're going to see Clemson continue to drop if they keep playing the way they are playing. I just
They
feel
looked
like
solid against Florida State. They looked better.
They did look solid. I'm just saying, if you're going to rank LSU above Clemson, why not Alabama?
Right.
If you're just going based off the resume.
Right. Because I think like it's the whole Clemson hasn't played like Clemson. Alabama hasn't played perfect, but they played quite well.
They did play well, like last week. I did watch some of that game.
I mean, Ole Miss hung with them a little too long. Their defense has a lot of injury questions right now.
Mm-hmm.
We brought this up last week, but I think if those guys get healthy, they'll be good.
Yeah, I do think like now that I actually got a chance to watch a game live instead of just going back and watching some highlights or watching a little bit of film, I do really like the looks of Alabama's offense. They look very efficient.
I mean, you've got a whole crop of weapons with Tua, and
So.
they always have a
Top
good running
receivers,
game.
yeah.
So
yeah, like it's strange looking at the upcoming Alabama LSU match, which might be like number 1 versus number 2 at this point. It's strange looking at that and seeing I might think it might be a shootout instead of like a defensive 9-6 battle that we would have had like 5 or 6 years ago.
right, it's so true. I think obviously the big shakeup was South Carolina beating Georgia, and some of us definitely had Georgia in our playoff predictions. Did any of us have them?
I am number 1.
You had them number 1. That's right. I thought one of us did.
did I have them in there? I think I had LSU instead.
Yeah, you had LSU.
I had LSU 1. I think I had Georgia. I had Georgia in 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I had them the first 2 out, but
I didn't have them losing that game, though.
wasn't expecting them to lose that game at all. I don't think
Yeah.
any of us were.
Yeah.
But it was the first big shakeup, really, in the playoff picture this year. You know, we've had some, like, high-ranked matchups. You know, the LSU-Florida game this past weekend, Oregon-Auburn early, some of those games that, you know, you knew were going to change the outlook. But this was the first, like, unexpected real shakeup of the playoff picture. And Georgia now has to win out if they want to get in the playoffs.
But what's crazy is they haven't dropped out of the top 10.
They're
So
10th, yeah.
It's not like they're that far away. I feel like
I think that's the right place to put them, honestly.
I think that was
I
also.
don't know.
I think that was in part just also because of Texas losing as well.
I mean, who behind them would you put above them? Would you put Auburn ahead of them?
Let me look real quick.
Would you put Oregon? Utah?
I could see an argument for putting Oregon ahead of them. Oregon's actually looked really decent.
Oregon lost to Auburn, so if you're going to put Oregon ahead of Georgia, you have to put Auburn ahead of Georgia.
I understand that. I'm just saying, like,
And I don't think Auburn's better than Georgia, quite frankly.
I would agree with that.
So I think they're in the exact right spot because Florida had the nice win against Auburn, and that puts them ahead. It's interesting that Notre Dame's now ahead of Georgia because obviously Georgia beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's been playing better as of late.
Well,
That is true.
Well,
Behind.
as someone who watched all of the Notre Dame USC game, Notre Dame did not look that good. They were.
That
were
is fair.
struggling.
And
They were
USC is an
struggling.
unranked team.
Now,
But
The
can we,
Virginia
Grant-
win looks less
Grant-
impressive.
granted, I will say part of that was just because Notre Dame and USC are rivals, so USC and Notre Dame always play each other close.
The jeweled shillelagh.
Exactly, but still, Notre Dame just did not look good. Their passing game was essentially shut down by USC, and they essentially relied on Ian Book in their running game to even stay ahead, and then their defense was just collapsing. So I don't know. Maybe Georgia really isn't that good if Notre Dame is not playing isn't as good as we maybe thought they were.
And Virginia lost to an unranked team this week, so that Virginia win looks less impressive now. Raise your hand if you think Notre Dame has more than a 5% shot at the playoffs. That's what I thought.
I honestly I thought they had less than a 5% chance to get to the playoffs even before the season started. I am a strong believer, and I think I said this on the podcast before. As long as they are not in a conference, they do not deserve to be in the college football playoffs.
See, I agree with that, but that's saying that they have a 5% chance and saying that they deserve a 5% chance are two different things.
Yeah.
Before the season, if you asked me, do they have more than 5% chance, I would have said yes, but they deserve that chance? No.
I would say that they deserve the 5% chance just because despite the fact that they aren't in a conference, Notre Dame still usually plays a very tough schedule. Especially
their schedule's okay this year.
It's okay this year. It's part of that's just because of all the ACC games they've been scheduling lately. But in the past, their schedules usually feature a lot of tough teams. They usually have Michigan, Michigan State, USC, who historically have all been very good. So
I have a question though. So on looking ahead on Georgia's schedule, they play number 9 Florida, Missouri, and Auburn are the only ranked teams. Is that enough at the end? Do you think at the end of the season for them to have a case for the college football playoffs?
If they have to win out, so they would also likely beat an undefeated Alabama or an undefeated LSU in the SEC championship game.
Right. Yeah. No. If Florida wins out, they deserve to be in the college football playoff because they'd be in the.
No, you mean Georgia?
Sorry, Georgia. Yes, Georgia. I'm in Georgia. I thought we were talking about Florida for a second. Georgia. If you win the SEC with one loss, as any one-loss SEC team can currently do if they win out.
Sure.
You deserve to be in the college football playoff. It is still, I think, the best conference in college football. Mm-hmm. Maybe not as far separated as we thought after this Georgia loss, after, Notre Dame hasn't, basically the fall of Georgia, with Notre Dame looking less and less impressive and their loss to South Carolina. But I think the SEC is still the best conference in college football, and as a result, if you win it with one loss, you should be in the college football playoff, and I think someone will.
And I feel like Florida with their quarterback Trask, I feel like they're for real, man. A lot of people are saying they're not legit because they lost their quarterback, Felipe Franks, but I don't know, man.
You mean Florida? You said Georgia.
Florida.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
we keep mixing it up.
Yeah, but I like the way their offense is looking. I don't know if they're going to be able to win out the rest of the season, but
they've got Georgia, and that's really the toughest game. Outside Georgia, they play South Carolina this week, so South Carolina playing that spoiler role.
Can we honestly say SEC is really the toughest conference?
Yeah.
I mean,
really?
Yeah. I mean, come on. Who in the
SEC is probably the deepest conference overall.
It's the deepest, and it's, I think, if you go team to team, I'm not really impressed with any conference this year. I don't think it's that much of a standout when I say they're the best conference.
They're all top heavy.
Because honestly, the Big Ten.
The Big Ten's very top heavy.
Big Ten is very top heavy.
Ohio State and Wisconsin are the top two. Then you have
Penn State right there.
Michigan is up there too. But then really after that, Michigan State is decent. But
I'd still put despite the fact that Iowa beat Michigan, I'd still put them ahead of Michigan.
I know Minnesota beating because I keep seeing that they're undefeated.
Yeah.
They are. They haven't beaten anyone. They've played a lot of close games with bad teams. Minnesota has. The fact that they're 6-0 in a power conference means they deserve to be ranked. But I mean, 3 points against Fresno State, 7 points against South Dakota State.
So
Georgia's Southern by a field goal. Yeah. They did crush Illinois and Nebraska the past 2 weeks, so maybe they're picking it up a little bit. Yeah. And they've still got Rutgers and Maryland before they have to play Penn State. So
they're going to be this year's Northwestern.
They'll be 8-0. Could we see them backdoor into the Big Ten Conference title game?
They'd have to be Wisconsin and Iowa.
Would they have to?
I think they could be Iowa. I don't know if they can be Wisconsin.
They'd have to be. I don't know.
I think you could, honestly. You might be able to backdoor in with 2 losses in the Big Ten West this year if something happens. I mean, if Ohio State beats Wisconsin, and Wisconsin has 1 loss, Iowa has already lost twice in the Big Ten now.
There's a chance, man.
Minnesota could lose to Iowa, beat Wisconsin, and I think get in with a 5-2 or a 7-2 conference record.
It's possible. I don't know if I see that happening.
No, I don't see it happening. I'm just saying, it's a possibility that's out there that could happen.
All right, Griff, you doing all right there? You're pretty quiet.
I'm doing so good.
You have anything else to add?
Not particularly.
Not particularly.
Anyway, okay. Who's your dark horse playoff contender right now? Who have we not touched on that you think is making a good statement at this point?
It's tough, man.
No minus.
I mean, there's really only 5. No, I don't know.
I think Penn State doesn't get talked about enough, honestly.
I think they're pretenders, honestly.
I mean, we'll see.
We'll find out, but
I know they only beat Iowa by 5, but honestly, that defense is legit.
Mm-hmm.
That offense can be. It
Suspect
depends.
at
It
times.
hinges on Clifford sometimes, their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They'll play Michigan this weekend. They have at Michigan State, at Minnesota, then obviously at Ohio State toward the end of the year. They still got plenty of games to test their mettle.
Everything is going to play itself out. Literally, like, I feel like...
Oh, yeah. We'll know by the end of the season who the 4 best teams are, I think.
Yeah. Because literally right now, the top...
Because everyone plays each other.
Yeah, literally the top 10, like, half the teams all play each other, probably multiple times.
Yeah.
So, except for Notre Dame. It's a lot of Big Ten and SEC teams. And then you have Clemson and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson plays no one.
Yeah.
So we had Clemson jump Ohio State.
No,
No,
Clemson's
Clemson-
been there.
Clemson-
They're
Clemson was already ahead of Ohio State.
Clemson was number 2 last week.
down one.
We just
moved down.
None of us had them like ranked high. That's why.
I
So we
don't.
had LSU jumping.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
jumped up
yes,
3
yes.
spots.
Which LSU realistically should have been up there the
Right,
entire
right.
time.
Georgia's lost breaking the tie, which, yeah.
Yeah, Ohio State lost it by a week, but just from like what I've been hearing, like nationally, it still seems like Ohio State is probably like one of the most respected teams, just with what they've proven so far
Yeah.
How complete they've looked.
and how complete they've worked. So I don't think Ohio State's necessarily in any trouble, even if they drop like one game in the regular season to Wisconsin, but still beat them in the Big Ten championship. I still think Ohio State gets in that case, but.
Right.
Obviously, I would rather Ohio State just go undefeated to save us the trouble and worry.
We want to get to that playoff, baby.
Yeah,
Experience that as a unit.
Nolans.
So, when you guys are thinking about college football playoffs, do you guys think in the mindset of the 4 best teams, or do you guys think of conference champions?
I think of the 4 best teams.
4 best teams.
Which are usually conference champions. I think most deserving should be in there too, though.
Yeah, I think 4 best teams just because I look back to when Ohio State made it like 3 years ago, I believe it was, and then they lost 31-0 to Clemson, which is like how strong their resume was. Even with the loss to Penn State, I still felt like Ohio State was one of the 4
Let's
best
say
teams
this
in the
happens,
country.
okay? Let's say LSU beats Alabama, and they represent their division in the SEC championship game, but they lose. Then, actually, never mind. That's way too much thinking.
Yeah, I think we're starting to run on time. We should.
Yeah,
Go.
I do want. We haven't talked about Oklahoma at all. They did.
I feel like
beat
they're gonna
Texas.
get in.
I feel like they'll
As
get
long
in.
as they don't.
They
get
don't have
upset.
another
Yeah.
game. They don't even play Baylor, do they?
Do they? Let me check.
Like Baylor's the only other ranked team in the Big 12 right now, right?
They play Baylor.
Yeah.
Okay, they play Baylor.
Yeah.
I don't think Baylor will beat them though. Oklahoma should win out. Oklahoma should win out.
So Oklahoma and Clemson.
If they
are
play
seeming
Texas
like
again,
the-
they'll beat Texas.
as long as Clemson and Oklahoma win out, they're like almost 2 locks, and they're going to have the SEC and Big Ten champion.
Right. That's what we've been saying. That's what I think too.
Yeah. So I do. I don't know.
Somebody's going to be a little mad.
I feel like we're still
Someone's
looking
always
at
a
this.
little mad.
I feel like we're looking at it maybe a little bit chalky. I still feel like there's another upset in here that might surprise us a little bit.
For sure, there always can be.
But
Yeah.
I feel like this is the year where after like the college football playoffs are announced, it's going to be like a roar of just we need to expand to 8 teams like now.
Yeah, I
It always
think
is
it
kinda
should.
looming in the distance.
It was
Yeah.
always like a question, but I feel like this is a year where
It's
it's going to
like-
be like,
You have
5 and
5
6?
power conferences. Why are there only 4 spots?
yeah.
And then you throw Notre Dame in there. Notre Dame should be forced to join the conference.
Could you imagine a college football playoffs where a great team such as LSU misses it because of not winning their conference?
Right.
Say like LSU has like a let's go crazy. LSU has like a triple overtime loss to Alabama. That's
It doesn't
their
have to
only
be
one.
triple overtime. They could lose regular.
Yeah, lose close regular. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I was
I-
just saying triple overtime to make it fun.
Yeah. A little
I don't know.
unrealistic, but yeah.
I think we're going into too many hypotheticals.
Yeah,
here.
Yeah,
we
but
were getting
I mean, if we have Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, and then LSU is out, and let's say Wisconsin is out, that's going to be very tough.
Right, and Wisconsin's only like, what if Ohio State loses to Wisconsin next week and then beats them in the Big Ten title game to get in, and now Wisconsin's sitting there with 1 loss, and it's only to Ohio State who they beat earlier in
yeah.
the season. Yeah, no, these are definitely
can get-
real arguments to be had. For
This is the
playoff
year, I'm
expansion.
telling you, 2020 is the year they implement 8 teams. Not right away, but the discussion becomes actually legit.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I do think that's all we have time for to talk about football this week. I think it's time to move into our quiz segment of the podcast.
Griffin,
you want to call Nicholas in?
Are you ousting me from the premises?
We're ousting
we're
you.
throwing you out.
We're tossing you out. Get the heck out of here.
Get on
All
out of
right,
here.
I
I
will
will pick
grab-
on you this time.
Yeah. I'll go grab our lovely arts and life section editor, and he might actually have more to say this week than I do.
We'll see.
He's Nicholas is a character.
That's for sure.
I think you guys are gonna like him.
Uh-huh. So while Griffin's getting situated here, just to remind you guys, this is the 5 for 5 quiz show. I'm going to ask Nicholas 10 multiple choice questions about sports. If he gets 5 right, he'll win $5, which is out of my personal funds. If you would like to see him, future guest, win a bigger prize, if you think $5 is being too cheap, then there's a donation link. You can go ahead and click down below for the
There's not a donation link.
for the
We're
Starving
nonprofits.
College Reporters Fund. The Starving College
Just put your
Reporter
Venmo
Fund.
out.
Andy, did you ever give
A
Lydia
Venmo.
that cookie or the money, by the way?
I did give her the money.
Not the cookie.
though.
That's what she wanted,
Which I was
man.
promised a steak of, by the way.
Yeah.
Take 'em.
Yeah,
I'll-
I'm actually upset about this.
We'll
you know,
take care of it. We'll take care of it.
Lydia needs that cookie. She
For
earned
$5,
that.
she can buy a very good cookie.
Yeah. Still, it was originally going to be $10, but you cheaped out.
Everyone was like, "Don't make it 10," and I was like, "Okay, I won't make it 10 because I am poor. I am a broke college student, and if you would like to send money, my Venmo is at." No, we're not going to do that. Not actual panhandling, only panhandling in jest.
In jest.
And there is the man, the myth, the legend.
What's happening?
Close the door, yeah.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, entering the podcast room, we have Nicholas Youngblood,
Youngblood.
Arts and Life section editor.
What's happening?
What's happening?
You want to introduce yourself to the people? Give a background of your sports experience.
So, I played soccer in the house league from preschool through my senior year. And I used to watch a lot of UFC. And
UFC
I
counts.
was, yeah, it counts. And
Yeah,
I
counts.
was in marching band for 4 years and didn't learn any of the mechanics of the game until my senior year when a freshman tuba player explained it to me.
Well, there you go.
So I literally would just, they'd just be like, you're supposed to play the fight song now. And I'd be like, okay. And I would do it. So,
Fair enough. We do have a couple soccer questions in here for you. Hopefully those will be
boy.
some
If I
softballs.
miss those, then wow, that'll be really sad.
Right. So basically 10 multiple choice questions. If you get 5 right, win $5. It'd be more if I wasn't so poor. So
And a cookie, because that's now I'm making
The
that.
cookie part of the always sweetening the pot like that?
Yeah, we're streaming the part because Lydia was supposed to get a cookie as part of her win, but Andy hasn't given her a cookie yet, so I'm just making it a standard now.
okay.
What sort of cookie?
Whatever cookie you want.
Okay.
So,
Right. Let's
now,
hop
now
right
it's
in.
real. Cookies.
Now it's very real.
Yeah.
All right. First question, Nicholas.
Yes.
In football, how many points is a field goal worth? Is it A, 6, B, 3, C, 4, or D, 7?
Is the field goal the one where they kick it after a touchdown, or is it the one where they kick it because they can't get a touchdown?
technically both, but we're talking about the one where it's
No, that's that.
Not
No, the
included.
other one's an extra point,
yeah, but it's a
PAT.
field goal attempt. But
I-
technically, I don't know. Yeah, not the one.
Don't
right after.
confuse him.
Not the one right after the
Okay,
not the
hold
one
on.
right after a
This is
touchdown.
not that one. This
Yeah.
is the one where they can't get to the end zone.
Right.
Yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then my options are
6, 3, 4, and 7.
3.
3 is correct.
Ding,
That's
ding, ding.
one.
All right.
Very nice.
I'll be the sound effects.
They will
There you
get
go.
harder. In baseball, what happens if a batter is hit by a pitch? A, mandatory pitcher ejection. B, the umpire shouts, "Crank that soldier boy."
Does he dab then?
Yeah.
At that point, yes.
At that point, yes.
Easy dab.
C, the batter has the option of taking first base. Or D, a pinch hitter is selected.
It is C.
You are correct. 2 for 2 to
Ding,
start.
ding, ding.
Yeah, I did play baseball in third grade for like 6 months,
Well,
and
there
then
you
I
go.
got bullied off the team because I was
Aw.
bad.
Well, there you go.
I played baseball. Me and Brian played baseball our entire lives.
I mean, I haven't played it my entire life. I've covered it for a most.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah,
I played it. I played it until 6th grade, but I was really bad at it.
I never hit a ball, and then I also did basketball for a season, and I never got a basket. I also did wrestling in 3rd grade and never won a match. So I really tried them all. They just
did.
None of
None
them
of them
worked.
worked.
Honestly, relatable.
Yeah.
It took time for me for something. I was bad at baseball for a while, then I got good, but then I was done because high school ended. Who typically does face-offs in hockey? The center, the right wing, a defenseman, or the goaltender?
Center.
That is correct.
Ding,
There
ding,
you
ding.
go.
Nice.
3 for 3.
3 for 3 already.
Okay.
While it's quaking in its boots.
Right.
Well,
And a distant cookie.
the other part of it's bragging rights, right? So Lydia got 7 right.
Okay.
So
try to top that.
So you
You're
got
on, you're on pace to beat it right now.
You are. There's some. I know there's at least one other one. Yeah, I know you'll get the soccer question because it's pretty basic if you know soccer. I think.
Now you have to get that question
Yeah.
Hyping that question up.
All right. Which of these was introduced as an Olympic sport for the year 2020? And these are all real sports, by the way. A. Pelota, B. Kumite, C. Netball, or D. Shinty.
I'm pretty sure at least 3 of those are spices.
They're all sports.
Roll them by me one more time.
Pelota, Kumite, Netball, Shinty.
I'm going to say the first one, pelota.
It was Kumite.
Kumite?
Kumite.
What is that?
It's a form of karate. It's like karate fighting.
It sounds like my birthstone or something. Yeah,
It really does.
Late June's Kumite.
It sounds like a birthstone or like
June is Kumite.
like a spice, as you said. So, but hey, go Kumite.
Kumite.
Right.
All right, 3 for 4 so far. This is the one I think will be easiest for you. In soccer, what constitutes offsides? An attacker waits beyond the center line before receiving a pass. Too many players line the edges of the field. Too many players are yelling loudly, which hurts the referee's ears. Or D, there are no defenders between an attacker and a goalie prior to a pass that goes beyond the final defender.
It's the one, you're past last defender and you get past.
Yes. Yeah, that's...
You kind of set that question up
Yep.
to where I was like, you know which one.
Well,
the answer
he was
is.
going to know regardless. I
Oh,
feel
that
like
was
if
the
you
soccer
played
question?
soccer. Yeah, it was the soccer question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job.
I should have asked about hockey offsides. That one's harder.
I don't know.
So what is he? 5 for 5?
He's 4 for 5.
4 for 5.
Yeah,
he
he
missed
didn't
6.
He didn't.
Oh,
He
yeah.
didn't know about. He didn't know about Kumite, man.
Okay, you're still on pace though.
What position group is called for the most offensive holding penalties in football? Is it A, running backs, B, offensive linemen, C, quarterbacks, or D, linebackers?
Which one's called for the most holding?
Wait,
Offensive
Is this
holding.
a statistical question?
Like if you like, it's a general knowledge football question.
Yeah, okay. Which one's the most likely to be holding?
Yeah, which one's most likely to be called for offensive holding?
Okay.
Running backs, offensive linemen, quarterbacks, or linebackers?
Quarterback.
Nope.
What? But they're the one who holds the ball. I would assume they get called for holding. Is that not when you're like holding it too long?
No.
Like, if there was, like basketball, you know, when you can't
Oh
like
my gosh.
sitting there for too long.
That's that's called a
Wow.
shot clock, but yeah.
Wait, is this when you like tackle and you're like grabbing onto the guy?
Offensive line, so it's when you're blocking somebody,
Yeah.
you can't grab onto their jersey or
Yeah,
like wrap around the
okay,
outside of them.
Yeah.
That's holding.
quarterback.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe a really aggressive.
He's holding the ball.
And he said
too.
linebackers.
Oh, man,
That's funny.
That
Okay.
was funny.
All right. Which of these real plays from the 4 major American professional sports is associated with basketball specifically? Is it A, play action, B, pick and roll, C, forecheck, or D, suicide squeeze?
That is horrendously distasteful.
It's a real play.
It's
is
the
a real
pick and
play.
roll, right? Because you said a pick in basketball. I know that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's right. You got 5.
Suicide
Right now
Squid
he's
is
at-
You won. Now can you beat Lydia?
Yeah.
Wait, so right now he's at 6.
He's at 5.
5.
5 for 7.
Oh.
Suicide Squid is baseball, by the way.
Yeah, it's I mean, I could explain it, but I don't think
We'll do it. We'll do it off screen.
We'll do that
It
off
was go
screen.
in one ear and out the other. I promise you.
Right, exactly.
5 for 7.
We tried to teach him football positions earlier in the year, and he was.
It was a long and frustrating conversation.
It
for
was,
everyone.
but he picked up some of them, I think.
Yeah.
Probably.
Some of them. So, what retired basketball player is the all-time points leader for the NBA? A. Shaquille O'Neal, B. Khalid Hashi, C. LeBron James, or D. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
I'll give you a
Is
hint.
LeBron James even retired? He's retired?
Is he?
Is he? Okay, fine then. I guess it's Is it Shaq?
It is not Shaq. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
I would have put MJ. I was going to put MJ on there because I feel like that would have been your automatic guess, but then I didn't want to trip you up that bad.
Yeah.
Because everyone would assume.
Oh no, that Khalid Hashi answer.
Tempting.
I was close.
He is retired.
I was thinking about it, but you probably listed off, I think, all of the basketball players I know. You probably would have taken me a bit to even name Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to be quite honest.
Right.
Those are pretty much all of them. I think one is named Kyrie.
Kyrie Irving.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one.
Yes.
He's the one with the unibrow.
No, that's Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Wow, we said that.
we're like sports robots, just like repeating back the
I'm gonna have
information.
fun listening back to the audio on that one.
Oh man. In tennis, what is having 0 points called? Zilch, shutout, love, or zero?
Love.
That is
Clint.
correct.
Wow.
He would know that. I told you would.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
He didn't know.
that.
Clint didn't know that one.
I only know sports no one cares about, apparently.
I care about tennis. Tennis is fun.
Should have been asking
I love
bandy
tennis, but I just
questions
didn't know
out
love.
here.
I had roommates freshman year who were really serious about tennis. Almost as serious about tennis as they were about selling weed. Really close, neck and neck.
Neck and neck.
All right.
So what is he at right now? He's at 6?
6. So this is to tie
Six
Lydia.
for
Oh,
6
wow.
for 9?
Yeah, 6 for 9. So our 10th question is always, do you read the Lantern Sports section?
Uh-oh.
So do you know what Griffin and I do? What weekly article does the sports section run on Tuesdays following football games? Is it A, 10 lessons, B, the Lantern recap, C, the Scarlet and Gray rundown, or D, 5 takeaways?
I thought I had like pick in the name, and so now I'm really stupid. What was it last one again?
5 takeaways.
It's that one.
It is that one.
I could not tell you what it is or does or what is in it, but I know that it exists.
That's all you needed to know.
Well, there you go. You tied Lydia.
You tied Lydia.
And even more importantly, you get $5 in a cookie.
$5 in a cookie.
An imaginary cookie you may never see.
Well, I'll ensure that he does see it.
This is where we put in the sound effects of the...
The applause. Applause for Nicholas.
Yes. Well done. It was a pleasure having you on.
Pleasure being here.
Maybe
Yeah.
you can come back on and try to redeem yourself in top Lydia.
Top Lydia.
Are we going to do like a playoff system?
Yeah,
You
at the
can.
end of like the semester, you just like get
The
all
two
of
The
best.
highest ring.
Your
Make it a
all-star.
buzzing show, just like
I like that.
Short
Make it
answer
harder
buzzing
as
show.
we go on.
yeah.
I like it.
More points.
All right.
Make
All
them
right.
study a little bit.
Thank
Well,
you guys
hold
so
on
much.
1 second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just going to close out the podcast straight up. So.
Oh, I get to be here for the closeout.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get to
you
be here
do.
for the closeout. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Nicholas, because we are out of time. So thank you very much for watching. If you made it here this far, we'll be back next week. We'll be recapping the Northwestern game, and we'll have the Wisconsin game to preview, along with anything else going on nationally or in other Ohio State sports. From Annie Anders, Khalid Hashi, Nicholas Youngblood, and Griffin Strum, I'm Brian Nelson, and this has been the best damn pod in the land. Thank you very much for watching.
See you guys.
See ya.
Peace out.